The IMF has just published an update of the Fiscal Monitor. Here is Carla Cottarelli, Director of the Fiscal Affairs Department, outlining the latest global fiscal developments.
There is still a lot of concern about fiscal positions, fiscal accounts in many countries. However, if we look at the data, the numbers, we see the fiscal adjustment is actually proceeding more or less as expected in most advanced and emerging economies. In advanced economies, this year the average deficit is projected to decline by about 0.75% of GDP. Next year, it is projected to decline by about 1% of GDP. In emerging economies, fiscal positions are more or less unchanged this year and next year, but we think this is appropriate in light of the stronger fiscal position of emerging economies. However, in spite of this progress in addressing fiscal challenges, financial markets remain very worried about fiscal risk in parts of the world, particularly in Europe. Interest rate spreads remain very high for some of the countries in the euro area, and bringing these spreads down is the main policy challenge ahead.
This chart displays the distribution of annual changes in fiscal deficits in advanced economies. In 2009, almost all countries had larger deficits compared to the previous year. Over time, this number with increasing deficits has declined. This year, 75% of countries will have declining deficits, and this will rise to 87% next year.
With respect to the April Fiscal Monitor projections, we have revised up the projected deficit for emerging economies this year and next year. As a result, the deficits are now projected to remain broadly stable in these countries. And in general, this is appropriate given the stronger fiscal position of these countries in the context of a slowing down in economic activity. However, some emerging economies may need to be more ambitious to reduce their fiscal and macroeconomic vulnerabilities. Within the Eurozone, interest rates remain quite high. There appears to be a sort of disconnect between market perceptions of risk and fiscal fundamentals. It was an issue that we examined in some of our recent empirical work.
The following chart illustrates the estimated 10-year sovereign bond spreads for selected Eurozone countries based upon underlying fundamentals. Here we have the actual level of spreads. As the chart illustrates, current sovereign spreads are well above what could be justified on the basis of fiscal and other long-term fundamentals.
So a key question is why have spreads on government paper remained so high in Europe in spite of the progress made in adjusting fiscal fundamentals? And there are various reasons for this, but an important one is that high spreads in Europe reflect challenges that the Euro project is facing. Hence, the need not only to proceed with completing the process of fiscal and structural adjustment, but also the need to reassure markets that the Euro project remains viable.
Fiscal policy alone cannot resolve the crisis in the euro area. Securing the future of the euro will require a more comprehensive package of reforms that increases growth rates, accelerates banking and fiscal integration, and improves liquidity within the Eurozone banking sector and government debt markets.
Of course, much more needs to be done. The fiscal accounts of many countries still need to be fixed, and global vulnerabilities have certainly increased in recent months. However, we should not lose sight of one important factor, namely that considerable progress has been made towards restoring fiscal sustainability in the last 2 years.